Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and the Kalispell Warhawk Dynasty here on NCAA Football 14. Year 8 was very special in this series as the Warhawks won the national championship. It was a great season, filled with some great performances by our team, and we capped it off by defeating Houston in the national championship. But this episode, we move on. The offseason heading into Season 9. This is the recap of the off-season stream from Saturday, plus a little more at the end that I recorded just today. The off-season stream was about 2.5 hours long if you want to watch the long version. To start things off, we get some coach opportunities opening up. Clemson has fired Dabo Swinney after a 5-7 season, and apparently they had some interest in Leon Daniels, and they did not get head coach Leon Daniels. The only players leaving Kalispell this season were seniors. I speculated on maybe Justin Colbert going pro, but it didn't happen. And I ended up making a decision on Colbert later in the stream. One player I forgot to talk about in the recap was Bo Lee. It was fun to see kind of the evolution of his role on this team and the phenomenon that all of you turned him into. And the fact that he actually had a slightly significant role in the national championship. Now, to no surprise, we lost both coordinators to new jobs after the national championship, but there's some really good news here. Offensive coordinator Stan McBride is now the head coach at Texas A&M, while defensive coordinator Lorenzo Ward is going to have the head coaching job at Georgia State. Replacing them will be defensive coordinator Mike Stoops, who was fired as the head coach from Toledo, but he had enough upgrades to max out his entire defensive coordinator skill tree. That's big, especially for a defense that has so many players moving on. Offensive coordinator Mike Bloomgren is here from Stanford, and his tree is nearly maxed out. The coordinator situation is very good. Now for transfer requests. Still, no one has requested the transfer. But as far as the pro draft goes, 3 Warhawks selected this year: Marion Triplett, Chris Harrison, Glenn Hayes, all defensive starters from our championship-winning defense. Auburn had a bunch of players go pro, and if you want to see more of this, I went through every team in the stream. Oregon lost 5 players to the pros. Stanford lost a ton, and they were one of the only teams to defeat us a season ago. And then UCLA, of course, they lose a lot of players. So I wonder what the Pac-12 looks like next season. That's going to take us to off-season recruiting. We already had the number 15 ranked class, and a few players left on the board I was still interested in. I went through all these prospects before in the recap and during the stream. Basically, Ronnie Howard and Nick Robinson are 2 really good athletes that can play on either side of the football. Marcus Jordan, pretty good pass rusher, excited about him. Brandon Smith, number 1 rated tackle in the entire class. And then, looking at the players I still wanted to get, Daniel Foster in that 94-man coverage, absolutely, he was priority number 1. I knew it was going to be a very simple off-season recruiting period. It took the least amount of time it's ever taken. I was going to put majority of our points into Daniel Foster, but then I also wanted to get James Huggins with his great speed, hit power, overall run-stopping abilities. We always want to have a player like that on our defense, so Foster and Huggins were the big players I wanted to go after. And then there was also tackle Thomas Kane, punter Evan Temple, and I think maybe a couple more players I had some interest in here. But as you can see, almost all of our points, over 90%, were going to 2 players. And then I was just trying to get ahead of the game by getting a punter for a couple years from now in Evan Temple. This only took like 5-10 minutes tops. And this is what it looked like when we sim to signing day. So very simple off-season recruiting. But could we get a major boost to our recruiting class? Evan Temple ends up not going to school to play football. Then we get tackle Thomas Kane. That's good. We have to have our offensive line depth better. We know that. We've learned from that. Casey Taylor going to Arizona. Quarterback Dennis Blair to Kansas. Jermaine Kent picks Kalispell, as does Cliff Hayward, the center. And as you can see, Daniel Foster and James Huggins join our recruiting class. Foster, we win that battle by 7,000, and the Huggins battle by 3,400. So the aggressiveness there paid off, and we get 2 major additions to our class, and that boosts us to the number 8 ranked draft class in all of college football. Big class for us this year. I had to assign positions to all the athletes that we got, and Daniel Foster was always going to be a cornerback. Now, his overall could be higher at other positions, but corner is just far more valuable, especially after losing our 2 starters from a year ago, or 2 of our 3 starters. Ronnie Howard, this was a tougher decision, and after the stream, a lot of people wanted me to play him on offense, but I ended up choosing defense for him because I think that's what his best position would be. But it also happens that safety is a lot deeper of a spot for us compared to, say, wide receiver or running back. So I might make a change in the future. Maybe even play him as an offensive player as a freshman. We'll have to see. But all 3 of those athletes were made into defensive backs. Nick Robinson is going to play at cornerback, likely a slot corner at some point in the future. Next up, training results. Always good to see how much everybody improved over the offseason. And here we go. 2 99 overall quarterbacks in Justin Colbert and Brandon Warren. Hayden John Charles, the 3rd highest rated player on the team. Brandon Warren gets a boost to speed, which is pretty unfair. Throw power now up to 93. For the running backs, Kyle Thomas up to an 89 overall. Everyone gets a little faster, and this season we have to find out who is going to be the number 2 back to share carries with Thomas, now that Troy Lee has graduated. And we're going to talk about that a lot in the practice gameplay and even in the practice stream. We have another fullback on the roster here in Brandon Tolbert. We need to have one as a position minimum here in the game. At wide receiver, we really have 2 established players and then a lot of unknown the rest of the way. Again, practice is going to help decide who's going to play beyond the top 2. At tight end, Hayden John Charles is a 91 overall entering his senior season here at Kalispell. And then for the offensive line, with 4 out of 5 starters returning, it's definitely going to be an even stronger offensive line this year, especially when you include Brandon Smith. So I guess 3 out of 5 technically return. We still have to have a new center starter, and we have a good one in Ryan Westergren. On the defensive side, I'm excited about the potential of Boogie Turner, who has shown major potential in his career so far. At linebacker, we're very deep. We have some really good players there who are also versatile. And you'll see at the end the depth chart that I have laid out for the entire team. But linebacker is an interesting one. At cornerback, Oscar Bryant's up to an 89 overall, and he will assume the number 1 corner role on this team after being our number 3 a year ago and leading the team in interceptions. At safety, you see we have very good depth, and we're solid at our specialist positions here for a couple seasons. I had to make some cuts after this. We cut a backup fullback and keep just Brandon Tolbert on the roster. Martin Johnson, a left end from Arizona, gets cut. Then we see that we have a new defensive tackle here in William Perry, but we need 4 defensive tackles, so William Perry is going to be on the roster. This was the tough decision here, but I think it's the right one here for the series, and I think it's one that makes sense. Obviously, we have 2 99 overall quarterbacks, and Justin Colbert hasn't played unless Warren has gotten hurt. I decided to cut him from the roster and recreate him elsewhere so he can play out one more season. I think a real player in his situation would definitely transfer, especially if they're a high caliber quarterback. So that's what we're essentially creating here for the series. Final cut here is Lance Rodriguez at wide receiver, taking our roster down to 70. I didn't create any extra space this year. The roster I thought was hard enough to get down to 70, let alone 1 or 2 more. From there, I did a slight bit of editing, which I've done more since the stream ended. Chad Moore no longer has a guard number. He will have a defensive end number. That's a lot better. And here are some highlights then from practice. We have some new role players on offense and some new starters on defense we need to get to know. There will be another off-season practice stream later in this week where we're going to finalize some roster battles and help get us ready for week 1. Essentially, though, this year on offense, again, we have Brandon Warren now in his junior season. We saw the breakout of Justin Payne a year ago, and with him and Carl Joyce, I think we have 2 really solid receiver starters, and then Hayden John Charles. But outside of those 3, I really question the rest of the roster right now, and players are going to have to step up. Maybe it's Antoine Knightley. There's also the speedster Tyrone Houston, who was redshirted a year ago. And then our running back, who's going to be number 2. Marcus Payne is the player that I thought had number 1 potential when we recruited him. And I was so excited to just practice with him when we first got him on the team. And I just haven't seen enough to be impressed yet. When he's on the field, he's averaging less than 3 yards a carry in garbage time. And I'm just really not seeing enough right now to give him that role outright. So a part of the next stream we do is going to be more running back competition. We're going to see Marcus Payne, fullback Brandon Tolbert, because I love to have some power here. Nice catch, Payne. Also going to see Austin Jenkins, the second-year running back out of Colorado. I think the best player for the spot could be Marty Belafonte, but I have injury concerns with him. He's one of the more injury-prone players on the team and already handles kick return duties and punt returns as an All-American. Can he handle also getting, 8 to 10 touches a game on offense and stay healthy? That I don't know. So big roster battle there upcoming. Also for the wide receiver 3 spot between Knightley and Houston. But I have been impressed by both those receivers so far. I think Knightley has the upper hand in that one just because we can put him on the outside in 3 receiver sets and play Payne inside. And I think that Knightley would be much better in that role than Houston. But Houston can still probably see the role in a few other packages that we have. But I want to keep Justin Payne in the slot when we go to 3 receiver sets, but still have him and Joyce be the 2 receivers when it's just our ace package with 2 receivers on the field. For the defense, we have 3 new defensive line starters. So we had a pass rush that really led our defense a year ago, and I wonder how that's going to work out this season. Then you consider we lose 2 of our best defensive backs in Glenn Hayes and Michael Hunter, and it could be a very different looking defense this season. We might need to score more points to win our games. We'll have to see. Although getting Daniel Foster in there as a day 1 starter is going to help things with that 94-man coverage. And also those athletes tend to have better ball skills, so who knows, maybe he could be a big playmaker and secure us some more takeaways, something our team did lack a year ago. Our strongest position right now on defense is probably linebacker because we just have so much depth. And we're going to move some of those players around, and it's going to be tough to get all those players their opportunities, but it's a pretty good problem to have. Overall, I feel good about this roster. I do not think it's as talented as our championship-winning roster, but it's still really solid, and it's going to have a lot of opportunity out there for young players to step up and take on roles that they might have for 3-4 seasons. That's a really exciting possibility. So now for the post-stream festivities. I have a schedule in place that I don't plan to change, and here's how it looks. We're going to open the season versus Texas A&M. That's where offensive coordinator Stan McBride went to head coach, and I'm leaning towards Justin Colbert going with him. I think that'd be an incredible story here for the series. And one thing I've already done is I went into Stan McBride's playbook and I made it the offense that we ran, because that's probably why Texas A&M wanted him. They didn't want him to run the option like it was set to by default. We also have a game at Minnesota this year taking on Sidney John Charles. Then we get into our Pac-12 schedule a little early before meeting Auburn in the middle of the season. So potentially 2 SEC games there. And I think this schedule could be a really fun one. It would put a lot of key games on our schedule, and I'm excited about it. Now for red shirts. There are a couple surprises here. There was a great suggestion after the stream, and I have used it. Thomas Roberts is getting redshirted. I don't want to waste his abilities on the bench this season. He only had 21 catches last year after my much-hyped twin tight end offense really did not happen. I think that next year taking over for Hayden John Charles could be an amazing opportunity for him to have a big year. Outside of him, I've redshirted the offensive linemen who are not going to start. It's nice to have more quality depth here than we normally do, and we even have Johnny Cabral, who still isn't ready to start, but I think that he's a really good talent. Brandon Smith, of course, plays from day one. On defense, we redshirt defensive end Michael Hurst, who I think could be really good a couple years from now. No red shirts here at defensive tackle. I think keeping 4 on the roster is a good idea. We do redshirt Cameron Stewart. We do not redshirt James Huggins. That might be a little bit of a surprise, and I'll show you why we're not redshirting him here shortly. We do redshirt Braylon Kendrick at right outside linebacker, and we also redshirt Nick Robinson at cornerback. Also Marcus Smith there at the bottom of the list. For safeties, I'm not totally decided yet on Ronnie Howard if he's going to play or not. If he did play, it'd likely be on offense. We do redshirt Lonnie Johnson and Jermaine Kent at safety. Now for depth chart. Brandon Warren is QB1. Obviously, Rashawn Phillips now his backup. Running back, that is still to be decided, outside of Kyle Thomas being RB number 1, of course. A wide receiver, Antoine Knightley is the number 3 for now. Dustin Payment could be an emergency wide receiver option if there were a bunch of injuries. At tight end, Reggie Jackson is again the tight end number 2 after we haven't seen him play in a year. Brandon Smith starts at left tackle. Rodney Hall at left guard, our best pass protector alongside Brandon Smith. That left side should be really good. And then for defense, Chad Moore, Maurice Collins, Anthony Hicks coming off the bench, Boogie Turner providing pressure, Jaquan Cunningham, the nose tackle, joins him. Marcus Jordan will play as a freshman. And then at linebacker, pay attention. Wesley Merrill starting at outside linebacker. Xavier Bozeman starts in the middle. And on the other outside spot, it will be true freshman James Huggins. You might wonder why. I think his talent will make him very good on day one. I understand his overall rating is lower, but I'm not going to risk him transferring away by being redshirted, and I think that his skill set is good enough to play. If not, we have depth, and we're at least going to get him some playing time. At corner, Oscar Bryant and Daniel Foster start on the outside. Juno Springs slides inside to nickel. At the safety spot, I am considering starting Tommy Jordan. Maybe you can talk me out of this. But when I look at Jordan and Chris Baker, we have 2 different types of safeties. Baker is more well-rounded. Jordan gets the edge in coverage, plus he's younger. So I wonder if by playing him, we could have him maybe be an elite cover safety by the time he's a senior. He's a better cover safety now, has better play rec, but Baker's a much better run defender. Does that matter in our scheme when Baker might not get those opportunities? So I'm considering starting Tommy Jordan after all of this. It's still possible Baker could start there. Jordan could even play some wide receiver. A lot of things are wide open right here. I have some ideas. You can let me know what you think of all the position battles, all those unique roster situations we have this season. There's a lot to figure out when we get to our next stream and then into week 1 against Texas A&M. By the way, do you like the idea of opening against Justin Colbert and Texas A&M? They'll be running our scheme even. One thing about that is that I will be having to edit one of the players on their roster to be Justin Colbert, but there is no senior quarterback, so what I'm going to do is edit that player for 1 season and then just move ratings back down after 1 year and kind of simulate it there. It's the best I can do, and I think it's a great story here for the series. I'm excited about it. Hope you are as well. Transferring Justin Colbert manually has been a big recommendation for a little over a season now. So there's a lot to look forward to, I think, in year 9. Kalispell Warhawks and their title defense. A lot of young players now getting a chance to play. Consider that Foster, Huggins, Marcus Jordan, We have Brandon Smith, 4 true freshmen potentially in key roles on this team. Can the defense keep up their dominance after losing some of our key players? It's an exciting time here in the world of Kalispell football, and I'm really looking forward to year 9. I know we just won our championship, but I don't feel our journey is near the end yet. I've already said this will be at least a 10-year series, and we'll go from there. But leave your feedback down below. I think there's a lot to talk about from this video. Thank you all for watching. Please smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon when I announce the Kalispell off-season practice stream, and that's going to be probably in a couple days from now. So, thank you all again, and I'll see you again soon. Have a great day.